I am delighted to be here. I would be more delighted if I were there, and I apologize for the fact that I am not. And I thank Karen for being so discreet, but I believe in being transparent. I wish I had a, travel story to begin with, but how can I put this discreetly? The competency of elimination in the human system was overfunctioning this morning, and it would have been inconvenient for me to get in the car and drive a long distance. Otherwise, I'm fine. A word to the wise: be careful what you eat and where you eat it. So, moving on, my dear friends, I was so excited when Sylvia Hakio, who does the scheduling, called and said to me, can you do 2 Sundays in a row? I thought, wow, 2 Sundays in a row. That's a 2-part series. Well, then she called me back sometime and said, I got a cancellation. Can you do the third week? And I was like, gee, gosh, God, thank you so much. 3 weeks. What a wonderful opportunity to explore something at a very deep level, to look at a concept and really have the opportunity to take it apart. So as I was doing that, I was looking out my window, and I also recalled having been on the road earlier in the day. And yes, I know you're supposed to pay attention, but I couldn't help noticing the beautiful leaves along the interstate. And I thought, we're having one of the most extraordinary autumns in Michigan that I've seen here in a long time. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And this time, I feel that God is really blessing us with an amazing autumn in terms of color and brightness and sunshine. It's we look at it and go, the seasons are God's gift to us because they transition us through the year. We know that in spring, stuff comes up. We watch the shoots emerge from the ground. Then we have summer. We sit on our decks and our porches, our boats, and what have yous, and we revel in the warmth. And then autumn comes. And we experience this amazing display of color. And then the leaves fall off. And we think, oh, now what? And then we get winter, a time of incubation. And then we get spring all over again. I looked out the window and I thought, this is an opportunity to consider our own lives. And I'd like to take us back to the very beginning, to the Garden of Eden. Yep, we were having a great time in there. God created us and said, here's your place to live. And we didn't have to do anything. I mean, we ate the fruit off the trees and the stuff was there, and nobody had to punch a clock or get in a car and drive for an hour before you could do your job. We had a wonderful time. And then circumstances arose, which there are options of how you look at it. Some people say God kicked us out because we did something bad. I like to look at it as an emergence into an opportunity. We had a chance and an opportunity to become the embodied and visible and in the world images of God. So we emerged from the garden into a realm of unlimited possibilities, which is why every morning I like to say, and certainly before every class, I always say, thank you, God, for returning me to consciousness this morning. This soul you have given me is pure. I see in it infinite possibilities. Wow. Because what does that say to us, friends? That says to us, we are always at choice. We are always at choice. You know, the title for this series is Living in Transition. Transition. Are we ready? Really? Well, yes. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. I think that was one of the first statements I ever heard when I walked into a Unity church back in 1978. You know, I love saying that phrase, back in the last century. I realize that people who are born in the years 2000, depending on how late you were born in the years 2000, you will not have the opportunity of saying, when I experienced that in the last century. My dear granddaughter, she was born in 2004. Unless she lives a really, really long time, she's unlikely to say, in the last century, I experienced. But we have that opportunity. Most of us on this screen are dwelling in a transition. I remind myself every day that we are coming to a close of the first quarter of the 21st century. Yeah, on New Year's Eve, which I usually try and go to bed early and not hear the fireworks, I think I'm going to do something different this year. It's a close and it's also a beginning. You know, Jesus said often, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Behold, I'm doing a new thing." And he was. He came out of a traditional background. He came out of a Jewish background of his period in history. And yet he explored for us a new relationship to God. He who has seen me has seen the Father. He implied for us that the power and the presence of the Holy One, of God, was present in him. And the implication was, and it's present in each one of us as well. So we always have the opportunity to know this. The question is, why can't we? Why can't we? Why do we seem to have challenges in really grasping this concept? Well, we have false ideas about it. We have the false ideas about doing a new thing. And some of them are really silly, but unfortunately, they're consequential. One of them is age. Oh, I'm too old now. I can't do that. Or gender. Thank goodness that one is beginning to go away. Remember when girls can't do that, and boys don't do that. Thank goodness now girls and boys and men and women can do anything they want. They have the power to express emotion, their creativity. It doesn't matter. What a wonderful change. What a wonderful change. But then there's also status in life. And I know that I am talking to an audience who is, we're not young anymore, folks. We may still be dyeing our hair. We still may be doing whatever we can to appear to look not exactly our own age. I do admire those who are willing to let go and allow the gray to appear. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. And you know what? My mom, I guess I got it from my mom. She was quite seriously ill towards the end of her age, but she would also always look at me and say, "You won't let me go gray, will you? You'll keep coloring my hair, will you?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, it's okay, Mom. I'll keep coloring your hair." It's an illusion, friends. You know, do you want me to go like this and show you the white? I don't really want to, but that's one of our excuses. I'm old and I'm, oh, and then the other one is, well, you know, I'm retired. Retired. tired, if we take that word apart, R-E-T-I-R-E-D, let's think of a vehicle, folks. You take the clunker in, you take it down to your local place, and you say, I want it retired. And they put on 4 new tires, and you get back on the road in that car. Folks, we can retire our physical self. Yes, we can. And okay, here it comes. You knew it was coming. I would work it in. You get up every morning, you go in the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and you go, good morning, God. Thank you for yesterday. What am I going to thank you for today? That, friends, is how we retire our vehicle of expression. And we go forth and we do it. But what I'd like to do is look again at the word transition. In ordinary English, transition means moving from one state to another. When I state, I mean position in life. Okay, first we're kids, then we're teenagers, then maybe we go to school, maybe we go to college, whatever. We do training, and we move through the various social stages that are part of our human experience. It is interesting that it has in New Thought transition has taken on the meaning of moving to the next level of life, which means we have left this physical life and returned to the presence of God. I know there are people, some of them are very close to me, some of them are still very close to me, whose attitude is, well, when you're dead, you're dead. That's it. They put you in a box and they put you in the ground, or they do something else with you and it's over. I allow those people that state of thought, but I don't perceive them in that way. And I like the concept of transitioning from one level of existence within God or embodiment to a continued existence in God in a spiritual form. That is a good meaning of transition. Well, what I want to look at today is the idea that life, our lifespan, in other words, that those years within the brackets, okay, 19 whatever to 20 whatever, is a transit period for all of us. Is a transit period for all of us. There's only really one existence, friends. There's one. There's only really one existence. We exist in the presence of God. Every single day, when we wake up, we are again the embodied presence of God. We all know about Bob's cat. When Bob starts praying the Lord's Prayer, wherever that cat is, that cat comes and runs on, jumps on his bed, gets right up under his throat. Why? So he can feel the vibration of Bob speaking that prayer. We are a body of vibrational energy. And it never ceases. This is our physical vibration. Our permanence in the presence of God is a spiritual vibration. That's it. There's only one, friends. And a relationship, we are in relationship to ourselves. That is really, really significant. There is one relationship, and that is to ourselves. We live in, and I've said this before, challenging times. It was Thomas Paine who said, these are the times that try men's souls. I really resist that remark. What, he didn't think women weren't having, a trial time at the beginning of our republic, and our democracy, which we will be celebrating the 250th year of? Our society today offers us an infinite variety of possibilities. for us to live in transition. Next time when I'm there physically, I'm going to have us make up a sign that says sit in. I like to think of us as sitting in this environment of God around us. And we have opportunities to experience all of them. There's a scriptural guide for this. Jesus said it. Actually, it's also in the Old Testament in another way. It says, love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your strength, with the wholeness of your being, and your neighbor as yourself. I want to talk about the last word in that sentence, as yourself. For many of us, that is, oh, no, that is entirely too selfish. I remember one time, it was not long after I had gotten into Unity and began to understand spiritual things that I had not known before. And my mom and I were riding somewhere in the car, and she said something to me, I'm praying for you about that. And I said, oh, thanks, Mom. And I'm praying for myself too. And she went, oh, no, you should never pray for yourself. Oh, that's so selfish. Okay, that was her take on it. To pray that I may be as much of, and in many ways, the embodied presence of God, friends, is not a selfish prayer. We know that God is pure spirit. We see the activity of spirit, but we don't see spirit. God is kind of like the wind. We don't see the wind, but we see the towels when they used to hang them out on lines would flap in the wind, and we see them now when the leaves come down. We see the activity of the wind. For humans to see the activity of God in the world, they need to see other humans. And so that's who we are. And we are always in this amazing opportunity. We are always in the opportunity to transition from a small thought to a bigger thought, to, wow, I'm just not plain old Linda. I'm Linda, the Christ presence, with her dyed hair and her glasses and her earrings and her ears, and however we turned out this morning. And we need to go forth in this moment in that manner. And it was like, yeah, really got some great insights this past week. And I was thinking, my life is so rich. Thank you, God. I do that 40-day program of John Randolph Price pretty much, well, every single day. And I'm really grateful. And then I get a text from my son. You know that I have a married son who lives in Scotland, and I have one granddaughter. She's about 8 weeks short of her 21st birthday. She just started her junior year in college in Aberdeen, Scotland. And the text from my son says, sit down before you read this. Are you sitting down? And the next sentence says, Zoe was hit by a car on Monday. He ran the light. She was in the hospital for 2 days. She has fractured her pelvis in 2 locations. She will be on crutches for the next 10 weeks. And the university is allowing her to continue her studies remotely. Okay, I know those of you who have grandkids or nieces, nephews are sitting there going, that's exactly how I went, friends. And I thought, gee, God, wow, your batting average was really terrific. And now all of a sudden, what happened? It's like you were doing so good. What happened? And then I realized what an opportunity. What an opportunity to use all of my principles, to sit there and go, okay, they only kept her in the hospital for 2 days. They decided not to do surgery by going in and putting metal into the fractured parts of the pelvis. We all know what a pelvis looks like. It's that thing that kind of looks like this, okay? And she's got a fracture on each side, because then they'd have to go in a year later and do another surgery and take the metal out. She's almost 21. She's healthy. They decided with physical therapy, et cetera, it in all likelihood, it will heal on its own. And when I texted her later, she did say, yeah, well, it hurts a lot. I'm doing okay. And the kitty cuddles up to me, which is really good. And I am kind of wondering why this happened now. And I thought, no kidding, honey. Your grandma's wondering too. And then I realized that this is an example. There we are, transitioning from one thought to another, from one emotion to another. And all of a sudden, boom, it's like the bottom falls out. Or use whichever metaphor you want. And there we are, faced with, it isn't a bed of roses. There are thorns. And we go, so now what? Our human experience, friends, is a process. We are always in a transition of experiencing life. We are always in the moment. We think it's a span longer. It isn't. It's a moment by moment by moment. We begin again. We begin again. The most important thing, as I said in Jesus's words, were love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your thought, with all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. In these moments, and always actually, we need to be loving ourselves. Why? Because we are the incarnation of the God presence. And as we are able to love ourselves and demonstrate that kindness, caring for ourselves, we are able to do it for others, for those who don't yet know how the Christ presence lives within them, for people who in this moment are angry or upset or suffering or unknowing or absolutely, I like the word bamboozled. Do you ever feel bamboozled? I do occasionally, like, what? What am I supposed to think here? What am I supposed to do here? In that moment, friends, I remember that I live and move and have my being in the presence of God. God is not out there. God is not in a box on the altar. God is not in some mountain somewhere. The presence of God is within me. And I bring myself back to that place of being able to begin again. So this 3-part series about life is always in transition is really about situating ourselves in the presence of God in whatever stage of life we are. I do wish that I had been brought up in a tradition that had taught me this. Goodness gracious knows, for most of us, if we'd had an idea about this, our adolescences would have been a lot less traumatic. That's for darn sure. Or our first romances, or our first jobs, or whatever. But now we know, because we had the gift of being able to walk into a unity church. We had the gift of being able to discover the truth, that we live and move and have our being in the presence of God. So I'm going to ask you, taking a look at your life this week, where you are, what might you choose to begin? To begin anew, begin over, begin differently. It's never too late to begin. Actually, you can begin every morning when you look into that mirror and say to the perfect image of God before you, "Good morning, God. Thank you for yesterday. What am I going to thank you for today?" So I invite all of us over these next 3 weeks to understand that we are always in transition, no matter what it looks like. It is God's perfect plan of unfolding life and love for us. And so I would invite us to take that thought of God's love for us into a time of meditation. Just breathing in and breathing out. But before you close your eyes, if you choose to do that, if you're at church, look around the room and see who else is there. If you're home and someone else is there, look at them. If your pet is there, look at them. And if not, look at your own hand and see its beauty. And then as we close our eyes, we say, "Thank you, God, that I awakened this morning with the conscious awareness of who I am within the one power and the one presence. There is no other. I am one with it. And I am one with all the other ones who are one with it, in it. Whether near, only a few feet away, or thousands of miles away on another part of the planet, there is only the oneness of God's presence, only the oneness of God's love in every single human being, despite appearances. We look at people and we make erroneous judgments. We look at ourselves in a mirror and make erroneous judgments. Why? Because we have error thought. Error thought are illusions, delusions. We release them and we let them go. And we focus on the oneness of God present within us. And as the leaves begin to fall from the trees, they fall gently. They float. They do not say ouch when they land on the ground. They simply wait for their next experience as part of the transition of the season of autumn. We do the same thing. We go through the seasons. Let this time of autumnal change, in the vibrancy of its color, have an impact on our awareness of God present to us. Wear your brightest clothes when you go out to see the leaves, acknowledging their beauty and your own. Take a moment now. And if there is some area in your life or some thought within you which needs the healing presence, the awareness of the oneness of all of us, allow that image to come before you. See it in detail. And then infuse it with the perfect light of wisdom and understanding and willingness, the competencies within us which we can use to live the life God has offered us. Slowly and gently, allow your awareness to return to where you are as we join in the singing and praying of the Lord's Prayer.